The worst silver you can stack in 2026 is not fake silver, and it is not counterfeit, and it is not some scam coin off the internet. It is real silver, honest-to-goodness silver, that will still hand you a fat loss the day you go to sell it. That is the hard truth almost nobody warns you about, and it is exactly the kind of thing that separates a fellow who has been doing this a long while from a fellow who just started last spring. There is silver sitting in coffee cans and safes all over this country right now that folks paid good money for, thinking they were being smart, and they are going to find out the sting when they try to turn it back into cash. Now I want to be real careful with my words here because I am not telling you any of this silver is worthless. It has got silver in it, and silver near $66 an ounce, as I am recording this, is nothing to sneeze at, and prices move every single day, so that number will be different by the time you watch this. What I am telling you is that some silver is bad to stack, not because of what it is, but because of what happens to you when you sell it. And that gap, that spread between what you pay and what you can get back, is where regular hardworking people lose a chunk of their savings without ever quite understanding why. So there is a difference I want you to burn into your mind before we go one step further, and it is the difference between collecting and stacking. Collecting is a hobby, and a fine one, chasing pretty pieces and oddball finds and the thrill of the hunt, and there is not one thing wrong with it. Stacking is something else entirely. Stacking is sound money, real weight you are storing up on purpose, so that one day you can hand it back across a counter and get value for it, whether that is cash or barter or just peace of mind in a rough patch. When you mix those two things up, when you buy a collector piece and tell yourself it is a stack, that is the moment the trouble starts. I'm Hank, and I've stacked physical silver and gold for 35 years through every boom and bust, so if you want to stack the smart way, consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. Now let me walk you through the silver I would think long and hard about before I ever brought it home as part of a real stack. Let me start with those little wartime nickels, the ones the collectors call war nickels, struck from 1942 clear through 1945. Back then, copper and nickel were needed for the war effort, so the mint put silver into the 5-cent piece instead, and each one carries about 35% silver. Now finding one of these in your pocket change is a genuine little thrill, I will grant you that, and I have pulled a few out of coin jars in my day and grinned like a kid. But here is the problem when you try to stack them. A coin dealer is going to pay you well under the silver value for a pile of war nickels, and the reason traces all the way back to the refiner. Anything under about 80% silver is a real headache to refine, because there is so much other metal mixed in with it that the waste eats up the profit. So the refiner pays poorly, maybe around 60% of what the melt is actually worth, and the dealer has to pay you even less than that so he can make his own margin. You do the arithmetic on that. You are handing over coins loaded with silver and getting back a fraction of the true melt value, and silver has to climb a long, long way before you ever break even on that kind of deal. Let me put a picture on it so it lands. Say you gather up a nice little roll of war nickels, and you pay something close to what the silver in them is worth, because that is what a lot of folks do when they get excited about a find. Now the day comes that you want to turn that silver back into money, and the best offer in town is 60 cents on the dollar of melt. That means silver would have to rise better than 40% just to get you back to the same place you started, before you have made one thin dime of actual profit. That is not stacking sound money. That is starting every single race with a heavy pack strapped to your back for no good reason at all. I would rather you enjoy those nickels for the fun little bits of history they are. Drop them in a jar on the shelf and keep your stacking dollars pointed somewhere that pays you back honest. Next up is Canadian silver, and this one catches a lot of Americans by surprise, especially folks living up near the border who see it float across all the times. The older Canadian coins, the ones minted up through about 1967, run around 80% silver, which sounds respectable, and it is silver, sure enough. But you will often buy it somewhere near spot and then discover you can only sell it well below spot, and that spread is working against you the whole time you hold it. Then it gets worse, because in 1967 and 68 the Canadian Mint dropped the silver content down to just 50% in a lot of their coinage. Now you are back down in that low purity territory the refiners despise, the same trap as the war nickels, where the waist is high and everybody in the chain pays you less to make up for the hassle. Real silver, yes. Good stacking silver, no. And I will tell you where this really bites people. A fellow figures silver is silver, and Canadian coin is cheaper to pick up than American 90%, so he loads up on it thinking he outsmarted the market and got the same metal for less. Then years down the road he carries it in to sell, and the dealer flips it over, sees the maple leaf, checks the date, and the offer comes in a good bit softer than the man expected, because that dealer knows exactly how hard it is to move north of the border silver back out his own door. The lesson is the same one over and over. It is not what the coin is made of that decides your fate. It is how easy that coin is to sell back that decides it. Then we come to the 40% Kennedy half dollars, minted from 1965 through 1970. These are a strange one because they are American and they have got a nice heft to them, and they feel like they ought to be a solid stacking choice. But that 40% silver content puts them in an awkward spot. I have watched these things sell for under their own melt value, which ought to tell you everything you need to know. When a coin sells for less than the metal inside it is worth, that is the market telling you plain and clear that nobody in the business wants to mess with it. Think about how strange that really is for a second. You could hold a coin in your palm that has, say, $4 of silver in it at today's price, and the fellow across the counter will only hand you 3.5 for it, because that 40% content is such a bother to deal with that he discounts the very metal itself. That is a coin that fights you both ways, hard to love and hard to sell, and it earns its spot on this list honest. You are far better off putting that same money toward the 90% silver I am going to tell you about here in a minute. Now here is a category that fools a lot of good people because it is genuinely beautiful, and that is the art silver from outfits like the Franklin Mint and the Highland Mint, mostly struck from the late 1960s on into the 70s. These are rounds and medals and little commemorative pieces, and I will be honest with you, some of them are gorgeous, struck sharp and deep with real artistry, but they are a nightmare to stack, and let me tell you why. First off, they come in oddball weights that make no sense for a stacker, things like 24 grams or 36 grams, weird fractional amounts that do not line up with anything. Worse than that, a whole lot of them do not even state the weight anywhere on the piece, so you are left guessing at what you actually own. On top of that, most of this art silver was struck in sterling, which is 92.5% silver. Now here is the funny part that trips people up. Sterling is actually a higher purity than the 90% junk silver I keep praising, so you would think it would be worth more, but the demand simply is not there. Nobody is lining up to buy these things at a premium, so they go straight to the refiner, and your local refiner is going to pay you somewhere around 90% of melt for the privilege of taking them off your hands. So you get well below the melt value on a piece that cost you a pretty penny when it was new. And to add insult to injury, a lot of this art silver came housed in fancy albums and presentation folders that weathered terribly over the years, the paper yellowing and the pieces tarnishing, so they do not even hold up nice the way you would hope. The same exact trouble follows you right into the world of sterling silver flatware, and this is where family estates and yard sales lead a lot of folks astray. You will find sterling flatware, the good silverware, along with serving trays and candelabras and all manner of fancy tableware, and it is real solid silver, 92.5% same as the art rounds, but it carries all the same problems. Odd weights, no demand from collectors, and a straight shot to the refiner where you take your haircut on the price. But there is an even bigger trap hiding in this category, and it is one I have watched cost people dearly, and that is the difference between solid sterling and silver plate. Now, silver plate is just a thin skin of silver washed over a base metal, and it has almost no silver value at all, but it can look identical to the solid stuff to an untrained eye. You have got to read the markings. When you see a name like William Rogers, and when you see language along the lines of silver on it, that is almost always telling you it is plate, not solid. The word you are hunting for is sterling, stamped right there in the metal, because that stamp means solid all the way through. And there is one more thing to watch for that will burn you completely, and that is anything marked German silver or nickel silver. Those names sound like silver, they are meant to sound like silver, but there is not one speck of actual silver in them. It is a copper and nickel and zinc mix and nothing more, so do not let the fancy name fool you into paying silver money for it. Now let me pull back and explain the real reason all of this stuff is bad to stack, because once you understand the why, you will never get caught again. A coin shop cannot just buy things because they are made of silver. A coin shop has to buy every single item with a sharp eye on what they are going to do with it afterward, who they are going to sell it to, and for how much. And low percentage silver, and odd weight silver, and anything that has to get melted down to have any use, all of that is a genuine hassle for a dealer to move back out the door. So the spread gets wide. The dealer protects himself by paying you less because he knows he is going to have to work to get rid of it. And that spread is the whole ball game for you as a stacker. If you buy something a dealer will only give you 60% of the silver value for, then silver has to rise better than half again just to get you back to even. You are starting the race 40 yards behind the line, and you did it to yourself the day you bought the wrong thing. There is one more cost to this low purity silver that folks almost never think about, and that is the room it eats up. When you stack silver that is only 35 or 40 or 50% pure, you are storing a whole lot of copper and nickel right alongside the silver you actually care about. That means your safe fills up fast with metal that is mostly not the thing you are trying to own. You are paying for space, you are paying for weight, you are hauling around a pile of base metal, all to hold a modest amount of real silver in the middle of it. Pure silver and high-demand silver let you store real value in a much smaller footprint, and when the day comes that you need to grab your stack in a hurry, you will be awful glad it is compact and easy to carry instead of spread across 100 pounds of half-silver junk. Now I have spent a good while telling you what to steer clear of, so let me turn the corner and tell you the one exception in the low-denomination world that is not just acceptable, but flat-out excellent, and that is 90% United States silver, the stuff we call junk silver, or constitutional silver. And do not let the word junk fool you one bit, because there is nothing junky about it. This is your pre-1965 dimes, quarters, and half dollars, the Roosevelt and Mercury dimes, the Washington quarters, the Walking Liberty and Franklin halves, all struck at 90% silver. This is the gold standard of stacking silver, if you will pardon me mixing my metals. Everybody in the business recognizes it instantly. There is no guessing at the purity. The spreads are tight, so you buy close to spot and sell close to spot. And best of all, it is already divided up into small, spendable, recognizable pieces. If things ever got rough and you needed to barter, a 90% silver dime is about the most trusted little piece of money you could put in a fellow's hand. Everybody knows what it is. Nobody argues about it. That is what sound money looks like. And notice the beautiful thing about how it comes divided. You are not stuck trying to make change out of a big bar when all you need is a small trade. You have got dimes and quarters and halves already, small, honest denominations that a working man can actually spend or swap without a fuss. Silver has been money for thousands of years for exactly these reasons, and the folks who minted these coins understood something about sound money that got forgotten somewhere along the way when the country went off to paper and promises. When I hold a pre-65 dime, I am holding the same kind of money my grandfather carried, and I know down in my bones that it will still be worth something long after the paper in your wallet has gone soft. So if you are asking me what the pillars of a real stack actually are, here is the short, honest list I would build on. First, 90% junk silver, your constitutional coins, for all the reasons I just laid out. Second, government silver coins like the American Silver Eagles and the Canadian Silver Maples, 1 full ounce of pure silver apiece, guaranteed by a government, recognized the world over. Third, silver bars from a reputable mint, which give you the most metal for the least premium when you want to stack weight efficiently. And fourth, silver rounds, the private struck 1 ounce pieces like the Buffalo rounds, which trade close to spot and stack up neat and clean and give you real ounces without the extra premium a government coin carries. Those 4 things, and I mean those 4 things, are the best silver you can possibly stack. Every single one of them shares the same handful of traits, and once you see the pattern, you will never lose your way. They are pure, or close to it, so there is no waste to punish you at the refiner. They are recognized on sight, so no dealer has to squint and puzzle over what he is holding. They come in standard weights and standard denominations, so there is no oddball fraction to explain. and they carry tight spreads, which is the plainest way of saying you buy them close to spot and you sell them close to spot, and the market does not take a big bite out of you just for the crime of wanting to change your silver back into money someday. They are pure, they are recognized, they carry tight spreads, and they will hand your value back to you when you need it, instead of taking a bite on the way out the door. Now I do not want to leave you thinking I am telling you to throw the collector's stuff in the river, because that is not it at all, and I want to be fair about this. If you can buy any of this lower grade silver cheap, and I mean genuinely cheap, well below spot at an estate sale or a flea market where the seller does not know what he has got, then sure, there can be a real deal in it. And if you inherited a box of sterling flatware or a coffee can of war nickels for free from your grandmother, then by all means that is free silver and you should be glad to have it. And if you just plain enjoy collecting, chasing the pretty pieces and the history and the hunt, then have at it and enjoy every minute, because a hobby that brings you joy is worth something all on its own. All I am asking is that you do not confuse the two things in your own mind. Do not tell yourself a pile of 40% Kennedys or a drawer of unmarked art rounds is your financial stack, your real store of value, when it is not. And be mighty careful about paying full melt price for any of it, because at full melt you are almost guaranteed to take a loss the day you sell. That is the whole lesson, and it is a simple one when you strip it down. The worst silver to stack is real silver that costs you when you cash out. The low purity coins and the odd weight art pieces and the sterling tableware, all of it honest silver that the market makes you fight to sell. And the best silver to stack is the recognized pure tight spread material, your 90% junk, your eagles and maples, your bars and your buffalo rounds. Buy the stuff a dealer is glad to take back, not the stuff he grimaces at, and you will keep the spread on your side of the table instead of theirs. Remember that prices move every day, and that $66 silver could be higher or lower by the time you hear me, but the lesson never changes one bit no matter where the price sits. This is Hank, reminding you that the whole point of stacking is to store value you can actually get back out again. So stack the smart way, buy what sells easy, and keep your hard-earned money working for you instead of leaking out the bottom. Take care of yourselves out there, stack wisely, and I will see you next time.